I'd like to call into order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Apex Town Council for September 19th, 2017. I'd like to welcome everybody here, and I'd like to ask Councilman Schultz if he will bring our invocation tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beautiful day and the beautiful blessings that you cast upon us. We ask that you watch over us in this meeting tonight and that we make the right decisions for the best of Apex. We ask that you watch over all those who are suffering tonight through hurricanes and other weather disasters throughout the world, that they have the strength to persevere and rebuild with your strength. We ask that you watch over our military, and we thank you for our blessings for our veterans here and abroad. We ask that you protect them and their families so that they come home safely. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Apex Town Council meeting. I'd like to point out that if you plan to be here for more than just a handful of minutes, you may want to go get an agenda. It's a stapled piece of paper out there, several sheets. Feel free to go grab one now. Also, if you intend to speak at one of the public hearings tonight, you will need to get one of the yellow sheets, which is the guidelines for speaking in the public hearing. And when you have that sheet, you will also need to make sure you have signed up on one of the yellow sheets. These sheets are numbered according to the public hearing, so make sure you sign the correct one. The town clerk will be picking those up in about 6 or 7 minutes, and then we will be using those during the public hearing of the evening. At this time, we look and see there are no presentations, so we look at our consent agenda. Consent agenda is when we look at multiple items all at one time. They're typically non-controversial, and we enact them with a single motion. However, sometimes a council member may want to pull something to be discussed at a later time. So at this time, I'll ask the council if there's an item or if there is a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
With the additional item?
Oh, sorry, yes, thanks for the clarification. We have the additional, it's called the add-on request.
Motion to approve with the additional add-on request.
And okay, there's the second. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously. We now move to look at the regular meeting agenda setting. During looking at this, we have a couple items that I believe we need to reschedule. I would like to move them up to the top, and apologize, I forgot to mark the actual number. Which one was the one?
Public hearing 5.
5? Yes. So public hearing number 5 is the Horton Park PUD. That has been requested to be continued to October 3rd. So I'd like for us to handle that at the top of the public hearing list when we get to that point. Is there anything else? Not hearing anything. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda with the one change?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as modified. Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, the agenda is set. Public forum will happen on the first meeting of the month. That will be October 3rd. So we now move into public hearings. So before we get into public hearing number 1, I'd like a motion from the council to continue public hearing number 5 until October 3rd.
Motion to move public hearing number 5 to October 3rd.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. For those of you who may have come for the Horton Park PUD, that is going to be heard on October 3rd. Thank you for coming. Apologize for the inconvenience. But you get to enjoy your evening this evening. We now move to public hearing number 1. This is a public hearing and possible motion to approve the rezoning application 17CZ12. And this is Alamfeb Waretta for Cash for Houses LLC. Shelley Mayo is presenting. Ms. Mayo.
Good evening. Just to check, because at planning board they could not hear me. Can everybody hear me? No? Okay, I'll try to talk louder. As the mayor said, this project is located off of Williams Street and is in for rezoning. It consists of about 1.25 acres of property. This is located at the southernmost extent of the town's jurisdiction. If you look on the screen, you should be able to see a purple line, which is the Apex Holly Springs Annexation Agreement line. We are just north of that, at just above the intersection of Old Smithfield Road, and East Williams Street. The applicant is requesting that this property be rezoned from rural residential to neighborhood business conditional zoning, so B1 conditional zoning. The existing zoning in the area is primarily rural residential. There is some high-density single-family to the east and to the west, light industrial to the west, and high-density multifamily and LI mostly to the north. The 2030 land use map does show this as striped for medium-density conditional zoning or planned commercial. Medium-density residential or planned commercial. As such, the neighborhood business conditional zoning is a valid zoning district within that designation. The property is primarily consists of open space with large trees on the property. There is an existing abandoned building on the southernmost parcel as well. The applicant conducted a total of 3 neighborhood meetings. This is because when the applicant came in the first time after purchasing the northern parcel, he met with staff. Because of the very small size of these parcels, they're roughly 1/3 of an acre or so outside of the right-of-way. We recommended that he get an additional piece of property to develop because 1/3 of an acre is very difficult to build on. He did that. He purchased the second parcel to the south, held a separate neighborhood meeting for it. When he submitted his rezoning package, it was discovered there were a couple of people that had been left off of the notification, so he re-noticed it and held a 3rd meeting. All 3 of those neighborhood meeting reports are in your staff report. The applicant has proposed 27 uses on here. I am not going to read all 27, but I will give you a sampling of them. All 27 are listed in the staff report. Examples are barber and beauty shop, bookstore, office, professional or business, pharmacy, grocery general, and vehicle inspection center. The applicant is also offering 5 conditions. The first is that he shall provide a 20-foot type A landscape buffer along the west and southern property lines of this parcel, so the southernmost parcel, and provide a 20-foot type A landscape buffer along the western property line of the northern parcel. So essentially there would be a 20-foot type A buffer along the western property line and the southern property line. The other conditions are only full cutoff lighting fixtures and external house side shields shall be allowed where non-residential properties are adjacent to residential properties. The predominant exterior building materials shall be high-quality materials, including brick, native stone, glass, and masonry units. Vinyl siding is prohibited, however vinyl trim may be permitted, and EIFS or synthetic stucco shall not be used in the first 4 feet above grade. Planning staff recommends approval of the proposed rezoning as submitted by the applicant, and the planning board heard this on their September 11th meeting and unanimously recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is also here if you have any questions.
Do you have any concerns that two of the uses are restaurant drive-through and restaurant general, those being located in what I consider a residential area, or will soon be a residential area?
Well, historically speaking, this area, the parcels that the applicant owns were actually, hold on, I can't get it to go down. One second. Historically speaking, these parcels were actually business and non-residential parcels. The existing building on the southernmost parcel is, I think, an old church. This other parcel down here to the south that's also the pink B1 designation is an old corner store. And then there is a single family house right here.
The reason I'm asking, I'm not so much concerned about the business aspect of it, but usually when you have a restaurant, you have the odors, the fans venting, into the atmosphere. I mean,
That's not been something that staff has discussed. To be honest, it's unlikely with the size of these parcels that a restaurant of any kind would be able to locate here. But that is something that we would address at site plan level to make sure that that kind of issue is minimized.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the total acreage of this is about 2/3 of an acre, this,
So each individual lot, and there are two of them, is about 2/3 of an acre.
okay.
I'm sorry, it's about 1/3 of an acre. There's a significant portion of the property that's within the right-of-way as well. And that, because of the way that our zoning is done, we have to include that portion, even though, in the rezoning, even though it's unusable to the applicant.
Are these parcels a part of, what do we call it, Feltonville?
Felton, they are, yes, sir.
Feltonville?
Mm-hmm.
Are we currently looking at that, area out there for mixed use?
It is striped on the 2030 land use map as that combination of planned commercial and residential. I don't know that we have any further, that we're looking at it any more intensely than that, though.
Any other questions for staff? No? Okay. Is there an applicant that wishes to speak or a representative for the applicant? All right.
1 second, I'm just gonna pull up the slide form.
So while she's doing that, since you're representing the applicant gets 9 minutes, and if you would, start with your name and your address for the record, and then proceed.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Alam, representing Cash for House LLC. The property located 2248 East William Street and 0 East William Street. We are proposing to develop this lot. There is existing building here. Oops. And we are planning to build about 2,500 square foot building on the lot 7 and 8. So that's not a big building, so the impact will be less. Those building will have 2 retail shop and 2 office. So we believe that will not create noise or impact on the resident. When we say restaurant, that just like Subway, some fast food, but like Pizza House. It's not a big restaurant which can cause a lot of smell or a lot of traffic, something like that. It's just small. That's what we are planning. We are proposing a 20-foot buffer on the back side and 30 on the front side. There is also about 21.33 foot DOT right away. So altogether, we has already given up about 44.7% of this lot. So the remaining area is 45.3%. And this existing building, we are planning to renovate and convert it to a convenience store, which we will have about 40-foot setback in addition to the 20-foot buffer requirement. So it will give way back enough space between the building and the residents on the back side. So we are making sure there is no noise. We are making sure the neighborhood not be disturbed. During the public hearing time, I explained to the resident clearly, and I do not have any concern or issue about that. Mainly the issue was about tax. If there is any question.
Okay, any
That-
questions for the applicant?
I do have one. Is that structure the old, was it Prince Grocery?
No. The Prince Grocery is somewhere around here.
Down there on the corner?
Yeah,
Further
this
up.
is little church.
Okay, yeah. So you guys are gonna be able to keep that, you're hoping? And move it, you said, and make
Yeah,
it a convenience
relocate
store? Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And was it Mr. Rueda? If you don't mind, could you come up and put your name on this sheet? I will at this time open the public hearing. Make sure that's public hearing number 1. Yeah. But no one else signed up, so at this time I'll close the public hearing and refer the matter back to council for a discussion leading to a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Discussion on the motion? Thank you. Not hearing any discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
Okay. By my count, that was 3, 4, and 1 against. Anything you wish to say? No?
Not this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes public hearing number 1. It passes by a margin of 3 to 1. We now move to public hearing number 2. This is a public hearing and possible motion number 17, CZ17. Jennifer Quick seeks to rezone 7 acres along South Salem Street. And presenting tonight is Amanda Bunce. Ms. Bunce.
Good evening. Okay, so this is a little over a 7-acre parcel that's located on the north side of South Salem Street. It is west of the Salem Creek Townhomes, which are under construction. It's east of the Sugarland Run subdivision. And then we have an approved site plan for a veterinary clinic on this parcel that is currently not under construction yet. The property is currently zoned medium-density residential, and it's located within the Small Town Character Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to Plan Unit Development and Conditional Zoning. The 2030 land use map designates the majority of this property as medium-density residential and office employment. The northern triangular parcel is designated as medium-density residential on the 2030 land use map. The rezoning as proposed is consistent with the 2030 land use map. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on May 31st, and that information is in your staff report. The uses that are proposed for this plan unit development are single-family, townhouse, townhouse detached, and utility minor. Note that the plan unit development text does not require a mix of housing, therefore it could be all one or all another, or it could be a mix. There are options. The plan proposes a maximum density of 5.6 dwelling units per acre. The plan development text has set proposed setbacks and lot widths. The maximum height for all residential uses, I've received a change in condition this afternoon on this. It's been reduced to 40 feet or 3 stories as opposed to the 42 feet that is in your staff report.
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
The maximum building height has been reduced to 40 feet and 3 stories. Although the site is located within the Small Town Character Overlay District, which is exempt from the RCA requirements, the plan proposes to dedicate at least 20% of this development as resource conservation area. Buffers are proposed as well, even though they are, the Small Town Character exempts perimeter buffers. The northern portion of the PUD would basically be resource conservation area. Along South Salem Street, a 30-foot type A buffer is proposed. Along the eastern property line in this location, we have a 10-foot type B buffer. And along the western property line, there's a variable width buffer, so moving north from South Salem Street, there's a 10-foot type B buffer. And then we have a 15-foot type A buffer with fencing, an opaque fence. This area in this location is a part of a 50-foot stream buffer. And then we pick back up with the 15-foot type A landscape buffer with fencing in this location. I'll point out that here, there's a stream that runs through the northern part of the property which requires a 50-foot stream buffer as well. There are architectural standards that are proposed for both single-family and townhouse uses, and I'll just highlight a few as they're somewhat of our typical zoning conditions. Vinyl siding for single-family, vinyl siding is not permitted. Single-family residential units shall have a crawl space or raised slab of at least 20 inches. A maximum of 30% of the homes may be at-grade ranch homes. The garage cannot protrude more than 1 foot out from the front facade or front porch, unless it's side entry. Front porches shall be a minimum of 6 feet deep, and eaves shall project at least 12 inches from the wall of the structure. And this is a view of the single-family elevations that have been submitted. For townhouses, the architectural conditions, their vinyl siding is not permitted. There shall be a crawl space or raised foundation which rises at least 12 inches. The garage cannot protrude more than 1 foot out from the front porch or front facade. The roof line cannot be a single mass. It must be broken up horizontally or vertically between every unit. And the maximum number of, this is a change in condition number 12. Previously, the condition read maximum number of units in any building is 5. That number has been reduced to 4 this afternoon. The Parks, Recreation and Cultural Resources Advisory Commission met in July and recommended a fee in lieu of parkland dedication for this small site. Let me get back. For access, 2 points of access, primary points of access are proposed for this development. There will be a right-in, right-out only access to South Salem Street, as its proximity to Sugar Land Drive and Salem Creek Drive are too close to allow full movement access. The development will connect to the street stub of Salem Creek Drive, and that's where where full movement access will be obtained. And then additionally, there's an approximate location here for a future access to the vet hospital, should an agreement be worked out between the developer of the subdivision and the vet hospital. A TIA was not required due to the size of the development. All public streets will have sidewalks on both sides of the streets, and a 10 feet of additional right-of-way is being dedicated along South Salem Street. Planning staff recommends approval of this rezoning with the conditions as proposed by the applicant. the planning board held a public hearing on September 11th for this item and unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning with a note to town council to consider limiting the height of the structures on the western side, as well as possibly further limiting the number of units per building for townhomes. Approval of this rezoning is reasonable because it's consistent with the 2030 land use map designations. In addition, it's reasonable and in the public interest because it provides residential infill development where infrastructure already exists. In addition, the rezoning is in keeping with the adjacent residential density and land uses. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
What are your thoughts on the, allowed height now at 40 feet, but it sounds like, planning board wanted lower height, which I would be in favor of lowering the height. Do you have any thoughts? Is 40 feet sufficient? Well,
I can tell you, for single-family houses in the current zoning district, medium-density residential, 40 feet is permitted. Townhouses aren't allowed in the existing zoning district. So I think it's fine. It's consistent with what the height would be for single-family residential under the current zoning.
The existing houses that butt up against in the Sugar Land Run, do you know what the average height is there?
I don't know the average height. I know there are some one-story. Some of those one-stories, the properties fall back, and so it's 2 stories on the back. There are some 2-story homes in the subdivision. There are townhomes on the west side of Sugar Land Drive that are 2 stories in height, but I don't know the actual foot measurement.
So perhaps when whoever's going to speak for their concerns, maybe they can address those. But in our email, I see a 30 feet, and I don't know if 30 feet, they were asking for 30 feet, or, so I do see that in the email that we got recently. So I can show you a picture of it, or, I don't know.
What is the, so along the western side, you said it's kind of a mix between a 10-foot B, a 15A with fencing as you go up from south to north?
Yes.
Is there any along, I think there's a stream, I think we had some discussion about a stream along that western border. Is there going to be undisturbed buffer?
Yes, sir. That's a undisturbed, stream buffers with very minimal exceptions are undisturbed buffers.
So you have how much stream buffer on the property we're talking about rezoning?
So it's a variable width. The widest it would be, because we can see the stream generally in this location, and it pretty much ends at this point. So the widest would be here at 50 feet. I will point out that the parcels directly west of this site are open space that's owned by the Sugar Land Run subdivision, and those narrow at this point, which is why staff requested and the applicant agreed to increase the opacity to a type A in this location on either side of the stream buffer. So you can see the variable width of this stream buffer.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you, Amanda. Is the applicant here to present?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Stuart Jones. I'm with Jones and Canalson Engineering. I'm here tonight representing the developer, James Tucker, and the property owner, Jennifer Quick. I would like to say thanks to the staff for working with us on this PUD application. It has not been easy. Just wanted to point out a few facts. Some of these Amanda's already gone over. We are consistent with the 2030 land use map. Planning staff is recommending approval. Planning board was unanimous in recommending approval. Due to the size of this project, no TIA was required. These properties are owned by an individual who wants to save and restore the existing historic home located at the front of the property, which would be in this area right here. There's an existing public street stub from the Salem Creek townhomes into the site. There's no roadway access to the west into the Sugar Land Run subdivision. The Sugar Land Run subdivision is buffered by existing open space parcels along the common property line. So no single-family home abut our property line. The Sugar Land Run project does include a section of townhomes. So, what's changed since you last saw this property up for rezoning? The stream buffers have been verified in the field by town staff. The stream buffers have been surveyed and are accurately shown on the PUD plans. We have submitted a PUD rezoning package as recommended by town council. The PUD submittal includes more conditions, more design controls, and more specific criteria. We've changed the 15-foot Type B buffers along the west side to Type A buffers with a fence, based upon our discussions with staff. So also, at the planning board, we listened to their discussion, and we've reduced the maximum building height to 40 feet, which is consistent with medium-density zoning. We've also reduced the maximum number of units in a townhome building to 4. And we also heard the discussion about 2 or 3 stories, and I just want to point out that the single-family home renderings are all 2-story, and the townhome rendering is a 2-story facade with an optional bonus room in the attic in this area. So it's not a true 3-story townhome, but it may have to have a building permit as a 3-story structure because there would be livable space in that optional bonus room. So if someone later wanted, this rendering is part of the application, if someone later wanted to build a single-family home or a townhome that had a 3-story facade on it, it would not be consistent with the PUD application, and they would have to submit for a PUD amendment at that time. So by showing a 2-story facade on this with an optional bonus room, we basically have limited the site to a 2-story facade. We just can't say 2-story because we feel like when it goes to building permit, if a homeowner wants this optional bonus room, that permit may say 3 stories on it. Our neighbors have said that our PUD is not consistent with the neighboring area and that we're an anomaly. An anomaly is defined by Webster as something different, abnormal, or peculiar. The neighborhood to the east is a residential townhome community. Sugarland Run to the west contains both single-family and residential townhomes. We are proposing single-family or residential townhomes. We are consistent with the surrounding residential neighborhoods, and the anomaly in this situation would be the vet hospital approved on the eastern boundary line. In summary, we've listened to council, we've listened to the planning board, we've listened to planning staff and the neighbors as we prepared the PUD application, and we have adapted the plan to best meet the needs of the town and the developer. We would appreciate your support for this rezoning, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Stuart. Questions for Stuart?
So based on your presentation, it sounds like you project going down to 30 feet on the townhomes.
Well, yes, sir, because even a single-family home, we need the 40 feet. That's why the 40 feet dimension was changed recently in the UDO to allow for taller single-family homes. So that would apply to single-family and the townhomes.
Yeah, to me, it's not so much the number of stories, it's the height, the total height. Other than that, it's a good project, but the height is kind of a showstopper for me.
All right, well, we need the 40 feet to be able to get, the size of the building and the roof pitch that's required, requires a certain dimension.
Stuart, the townhouses on Salem Creek Drive, those are a 3-story look from the outside, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And how tall are those?
I don't know,
Do you
but
know?
they would be, I think at that time they were probably limited to 38 or 40 feet, but I'm not sure. That project went through a lot of changes, so I'm not sure.
So, I remain concerned as I was previously with, making sure that the people who feel most impacted, that their voices were heard, and I don't know whether there was any other meeting of the minds related to some of their concerns. So, you know, the height and the scale is a problem for me as well.
Anything else?
No other questions for Mr. Jones? All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. I've got two names on the list, Cindy Nelson and Stephanie Frigo. If you would come up in that order, Cindy Nelson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council, Council members. My name is Cindy Nelson. I am a recent member of the Sugar Land community, having moved in March of 2016. I live at 209 Milky Way. So on the map that we were looking at earlier, and let me see if I can pull it back up. The map that you had up there, thank you. Just to show you where I was located at the corner. I'm here also to speak on behalf of the Sugar Land Run community as well as myself. We are not here in opposition to the 2030 land map, progress or growth, and we're not here to oppose the right of the applicant to sell the land or to build there. What we're here in opposition to is the PUD proposal as it has been submitted. During the town council meeting in March, there was a town council member that specifically said, quote, "This particular project begs for a PUD," and we have received that PUD, but in it are very few details as to what's going to be put on the land and where. It has been told to us that perhaps we're not even going to have single-family townhomes in there because of the, quote, difficulty of the land, as Stuart Jones had said back in March. In the PUD, it was recommended by planning as well as council in March that the PUD was there in order to assess the impact on the adjacent properties, in order to limit the height to 36 feet or 2 stories, limit the number of units, and also just to have a basic plan, which we don't have here.
You never show us where you lived.
Yes, that's right. And I screwed it up again, I apologize. It's my first time talking up here.
Okay.
I am right here at 209. And in the topographical map, this might show it a little better. I looked up, and this is at 410, I believe it's 410 feet above sea level. Up here at South Salem is 470. So up in the middle of this property, we're talking about 450, 460 feet. The reason why we're opposing this PUD is because we don't know what is going to go where and how it's going to affect us. Everybody's talking about the incline, so let me just show you. Here is the back of my house, 209. This is 207. There's a stream that you can't see behind this fence. This is wetlands. This is the beginning of the hill, and you can see the hill start right here, this slope, excuse me. This is the back of 207 Milky Way. I am far back on the left, down at 410. Up here, you're looking at about 430. Don't quote me.
Nelson, I'm sorry to say you're out of time.
Oh, okay. So in summary, we would like to have the PUD have conditions that it's going to limit it to 36 feet and limit the number of units and put single-family homes down at where this hill is, because we're already at 20 foot.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Thank you.
Stephanie Frigo?
Is there any way that I can give up my time to her? I didn't realize I was supposed to stop her at my first time at the meeting, sorry.
No, you're welcome to come up here and use your 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Stephanie Frigo and I live at 300 Milky Way Drive. It is on the other side of the road from Cindy's home. I'm going to echo Cindy's concerns about the PUD. And these are collective concerns of a significant number of individuals who live on Milky Way Drive. We feel that the new PUD has not addressed any of the concerns that were brought up at the previous meeting. There is a lot of vague language about whether it is going to be single-family townhomes or a mix of single-family and townhomes. There is no information on where these respective single-family homes or townhomes may be located on the property. And as Cindy has already pointed out, given the fact that the land slopes up so much, if we are talking about an additional 40 feet on top of a significant hill overlooking the rears of these properties, that amounts to a significant amount over 40 feet. We would note also that in the original PUD, the height of the townhomes was at 36, and I believe that that's been increased to 40. So we feel we've not been heard when it comes to the height of the townhomes. We'd also encourage that you would think about limiting the number of units. And I would also underline that many of the design controls that the applicant and the design chap who just have spoken about, they're to do with what the exterior of the property is going to look like, whether the garage is going to come out a foot. It's not addressing the main concerns, which are the height of the properties and the significant amount of overlook. And they have talked about there's going to be a buffer and there's going to be a fence, but that doesn't prevent a home looking down on yours from over 40 feet above you. Otherwise it would be a hugely tall fence. So we would like to ask you to consider these things for us.
All right, thank you, Ms. Frigo.
Can I add one more element?
You still have some time left.
Super. One of the things I did want to address is the roof pitch on the plan of the townhomes. It looks like it is a design that is a 3-story design squeezed into a 2-story image. It's clear that those townhomes can accommodate another floor. It is a 3-story building. It is not a 2-story building. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that concludes our public hearing for this item. So at this time, I'll close the public hearing. Let me ask, as I often do, the applicant, if you'd like to take 3 minutes to rebut or comment on anything you've heard during the public hearing. You have that opportunity as the applicant.
Talking to the developer, we're still, the 40 feet's just kind of a, if we can't have the 40 feet, we really can't build a single-family home on the site, so we're kind of stuck with the 40 feet. I'm afraid that's just what we need. If we can't have that, then it really doesn't work. And
so can I ask a clarification on that, please?
Yeah.
So I thought I heard that the 40-foot concern was for the townhomes, but you're saying that you need the 40 feet for the standalone single-family home?
For both.
For both? Okay.
Both.
Okay.
Right now, if the property owner was to go subdivide and build one house on the back of her property, she would be allowed to go to 40 feet right now with no change.
Okay.
So we're not really asking for anything that's not already allowed.
All right. Thank you, Stuart. Okay, at this time, I'll ask council if there's any discussion leading to a motion.
I guess my concern, thinking over it again, it's the height and the stories. I mean, I guess I'd be okay with a 40-foot height, but not a third story then. My concern is obviously you can have bedrooms up top and then you'd be looking down on the houses next door. And I just don't think that's appropriate. So I'd be willing to go and do a 40-foot height, but no third story then. Or a 30-foot height, and to the extent that you fit 3 stories and 30 feet. But you can't, so.
Did we, discover what the height of the existing townhouse units are there?
They're approved to 44 feet.
44
is their maximum allowable.
Okay. What is the, so I believe that's all built out, correct? So it's maximum allowable 44. Do we know how tall the existing structures are?
That's for Salem Creek Townhomes.
Right.
It's not all built out.
Okay. Oh, it's not. Okay. I thought it was. I think I was the one that was encouraging the PUD back in March when we saw this. I think 40 feet with all the buffers that are included, they increased the buffers to A with the fence. I mean, this is, I think, way stronger than some other developments we've seen with houses that you can look out the window right into your neighbor's house, into their window. So I think they've done a good job putting forward what we want to see, more clarity with the project. You know, Ms. Quick has seen the east of her develop with Sugarland Run, the west of her with a vet and this townhouse, and I think this just makes common sense to complete the loop with minimal units. They added a lot. This is going to look like a much better project from the exterior than I believe than is currently there. So I'm in favor of this. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this and making this proposal to us.
Last time I was supported this, and because of pretty much the compatibility in that area, and that compatibility has not changed. And as I read through some of the staff notes, I also have to go along with what staff is saying and planning board, that they feel like that this is compatible and that this is in the long range plan. It meets the 2030 plan. Also noted that it promotes walkability, connectivity, and also public transportation. Again, I'll look around. I'm on Google Maps, and it's compatible with White Oak Villas, Salem Creek Townhomes, and the townhomes that are already in Sugarland Run, plus the single-family homes there. As Mr. Moyer has said, they've reduced the number of buildings per unit. They've also reduced the height. I believe that they talked about this before as being affordable. I've taught school for 30 years, and I know a lot of teachers have a hard time in this area trying to find an affordable home, and now I am a retired teacher, and the same kind of thing. I think this is an affordable community for teachers and retirees. It is consistent with the 2030 land use plan, and I do like the fact that Ms. Quick is saving that historic home. As we grow, it's also nice to see that we're keeping what we value and are restoring what the restoration projects and keeping those historic homes. So I am in favor of this because of the facts that are laid out in front of me.
Can I be reminded of what the planning board said they encouraged us to do?
They talked about the height.
It was the height also?
Yeah,
Right.
Can Amanda, can you specify exactly what the planning board suggested?
Sure.
As close to word for word as you got.
Okay, so the recommendation was unanimously for approval with a note to town council to consider limiting the height of structures on the western side, as well as possibly further limiting the number of units per building for townhomes.
Since planning board made those comments, did they limit the number of, the only thing that, if I'm hearing correctly, that they did not do was limit the height on the west side?
They reduced the height for the whole site
Down
by
to
2
40
feet.
By 2 feet.
And limited the number of units per building reduced it from 5 to 4.
It sounds like the planning board wants to reduce it even further than that, is that correct?
They did not give a specific indication of what height to reduce it to, nor the number of units to reduce it to.
But they reviewed it as, when it was submitted as 5 or 5?
Correct,
Okay.
with a 42-foot height. That was
Okay.
how they saw it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So tonight, we heard the neighbors saying they wanted more clarity about sort of where, what product was going to be located where. So I'm not sure that they got that from tonight's presentation. That's another thing too, is more clarity for them. So I'm still where I am, where I was before, unless the neighbors feel as though they've been heard, and I don't think they have been, unless I'm mistaken. And they can correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll make a motion that we approve this project.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Do we have any further discussion on the motion to approve?
I do think it's a good location. I just would like to have the neighbors, what they want embedded a little bit more into this project.
And I agree with you that we listen to what the neighbors say, and I think we all heard them and talked to them. I know I talked to them back in March. They wanted a PUD when they came to us then, and this is what we've come back and the developers come back and done that, and so I think they're being heard. I feel like you know, they are increasing single-family homes. Before, I think it was townhomes, and so I think their voices have been heard. And I feel strongly that, you know, the company that's doing this project has integrity and will value their wishes. Everybody wants to be a good neighbor, and I would hope that Mr. Jones would carry that through with his plan.
I don't recall the neighbors asking for the PUD.
Yeah,
That wasn't the neighbors. The other thing, too, is you mentioned affordability, Councilman Wilkie, but I didn't hear that this evening, so I would love to know if you have more information than I do about that.
Well, I believe that's what they said last time, and I guess I don't know if I can ask now, but I believe it was supposed to be.
What I do recall is a statement that the product, I think it was in the neighborhood meeting packet, that the product being proposed was likely to increase the product of the Sugarland neighbors, which I said unless you have a study showing that single family and townhome newer is going to bring up the value of someone that already has their home, I didn't have any evidence of that.
I'm sorry, so you're saying it's going to bring up their value?
So what the neighborhood packet stated was that during the neighborhood meeting, that when neighbors asked about the impact on them, that the response was similar to, well, this will likely bring up the value of your home, but I didn't hear anything about affordability, just about the value, or bring up a value of their homes. So I didn't hear about affordability as a model. So I'm just going to go with what I have. But thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
All right, well, let me call for the vote then. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
All right, we have a 2-2 tie, and lucky me, I get to break a tie. So, in the case where there is a tie, the mayor votes. I have heard this project plan come to us. I also happened to hear at the planning board, I heard what was presented there, and looking at it and taking a look at the approximate 7 acres and the density there, I see, by my calculations, there won't be more than 40 units built on the site. I also looked at the compatibility, and albeit sitting on a hill, I think there is compatibility with the scale and the residential nature all around. The 40-foot height may be taller than some of the homes in Sugarland, but they're not taller than I think some of the townhouses that will be next door. I think the developer has offered some pretty good buffer changes. I also looked at the western border, and there is significant RCA buffer along there. With the 2-story facades, I think these will be attractive-looking townhouses similar to what's already there. Therefore, taking that into account, plus the fact that planning staff recommends approval, and that the planning board also unanimously recommended approval, I'll vote in favor of this. So that passes 3-2. That takes us to public hearings number 3 and number 4. We will hear both of these together. These are an annexation and a rezoning application, and we will hear both of these together, just as we often do when there is an annexation and a rezoning. We can't rezone unless we annex, and we don't want to annex unless we're going to rezone. So therefore, we'll hear both of these together. Shelley Mayo will be presenting, and when it comes motion time, we'll try to do this with a joint motion as well. All right, Ms. Mayo.
Good evening. Before you are 3 parcels. They are located at 5112 Church Road and 3028 and 3024 New Hill Holloman Road. They're located off of New Hill Holloman Road between Old US 1 and New US 1 to the east of the Western Wake Regional Water Reclamation Facility. The applicant is before you requesting that this be annexed and rezoned from Wake County's R30 and GB. R30 is a residential district and GB is their general business district, to the town of Apex's medium-density conditional zoning. Just move forward. The applicant parcels are actually located immediately adjacent to a property that was rezoned on September 5th. So this larger parcel here, unfortunately we didn't get an updated map, but this larger parcel was rezoned 2 weeks ago by town council to medium density conditional zoning as well. The applicant, as you can see, the 2030 land use map does show this area as medium density residential, so the medium density residential zoning district is a valid one within the designation. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on July 3rd. The meeting report is attached to your staff report. The applicant is also offering conditions identical to what was approved on September 5th for the adjacent parcel. All of the zoning conditions and all of the uses are listed in your staff report. They are identical, including the 3 additional conditions that that council added during the hearing. As such, the planning staff recommends approval of the proposed rezoning as submitted, and planning board, when they heard this on the September 11th meeting, also recommended approval unanimously. If you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. The applicant is also here.
Do you mind restating those?
Sure, not a problem at all.
Conditions that were...
So we have, on here, there are 9 conditions, which are fairly standard single-family residential conditions. They are consistent with what we typically recommend for everyone, for all new residential development. And then the 3 additional conditions that council added at the September 5th hearing for the other property are: the buffer along New Hill Holloman Road shall be a type A, homes shall be pre-wired for solar panels, and the maximum density shall be 3 units per acre. Any other questions?
Nothing else for staff? All right. Very nice. So at this time, I guess I'll ask, is there an applicant that wishes to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. My name is Alonzo Wilson. I am the applicant that's seeking your approval tonight for the development there. I'd just like to add to what Shelley has said, and she's done a wonderful job in explaining it. I have been in conversation with the developer. I think we are both in agreement with the product that we're looking to put there. I've also talked with, in my neighborhood meeting, I had no opposition. And I'm also talking with some current property owners out there because, again, as I stated in my last meeting, in my comments to last meeting I was in, I'm trying to, my objective is to bring workforce or affordable housing to that area. And the other thing with the land plan use that's already been approved by you guys, I think last October, it called for, I think it'd be the south side of Church Road to be commercial zoning, so I'm currently working with property owner there to look at bringing that to fruition. I think it would be a good development. I think it would accomplish one of the objectives is to bring affordable or workforce housing to the town. I see it as as a good project. It's right there at the interchange. New Hill Holloman Road is going to be sort of the main thoroughfare leading into all of the other development that's going on across the track. So again, I think that would enhance the entrance, so to speak, coming onto New Hill Holloman Road for that area. So again, I'm just asking for you guys to look at that and asking for your approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wilson. And opening the public hearing is Michael Foley here. You wish to speak? Come on up. All right.
Good evening, Michael Foley, 107 Oxpens Road, Cary. I have the property, the 18-acre property that was approved by your board on the September 5th meeting, and I wanted to speak in favor of Alonzo's project. We're under contract to purchase his properties, and they're essential for what we want to do. As we mentioned at the meeting, we want to do some first-time homebuyer products starting under $300,000. His parcels have access to New Hill Holloman and Church Road, so they'll give us multiple accesses, allow us to fully develop our site, also give us the additional lots that we can use to keep our product at that first-time homebuyer level. So I hope you'll approve it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. That being the last person on the public hearing sign-up sheet, I'll close the public hearing and refer the matter to council for discussion or possible motion. And to be clear, this is a motion for annexation and rezoning application.
I will make the motion to annex and rezone.
All right, thank you.
With the conditions proposed.
Okay. Is there a second? All right, there we go. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Just want to mention, same as that I said last time, I'm looking forward to talking to you all really about workforce housing in this area. So the $290 really is not affordable, but it's better than what some of the things have come before. So I'm excited to talk to you more about that, what that would really mean.
All right. Not seeing anyone else. Let me call for the vote then. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, that passes unanimously. And public hearing number 5 has previously been continued to October 3rd. So we will jump past that one to public hearing number 6. And we have a possible closing of a right-of-way along former Technology Drive. The Assistant Town Manager, Sean Purvis, is presenting. Mr. Purvis.
Mayor Olive, members of Town Council, the request before you is from Empire State to close a portion of the right-of-way along Old Technology Drive. The right-of-way is no longer needed due to the rerouting of Technology Drive when 55 was redone in the area. DOT has already abandoned the right-of-way, and they're waiting for us to go through proper closure. We do need to retain an easement for utilities in it. The map on the screen, you can see the yellow is Empire State's property. The red outlines the right-of-way that would be closed, and the blue is roughly where the easement would be. And then we've got the survey. Staff has reviewed it. There's no question. There's no issue with moving forward with the closure. They just request through the public hearing that we go through it, and the order is in your packet as well.
All right. Questions for Mr. Purvis?
Does that property revert back to the?
Yes, they own both sides of it,
Yeah.
so they will retain ownership.
What's the red, is that the?
That was the original Technology Drive right-of-way that went through there.
Thank you.
Has the right-of-way across 55 already been abandoned too?
I do not know that. I've not been.
Yeah, I was just looking at the map. It kind of looks like it's still there.
Right here?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that one,
Yeah.
Mr. Meyer.
Great presentation.
PowerPoint skills.
Those colors are incredible.
Gotta make it bright.
All right, is there a motion?
We need
a
a
public
public hearing.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, all right. Thank you, Mr. Purvis. We will open the public hearing now and close the public hearing because no one signed up. So now, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that motion passes unanimously. That takes us to public hearing number 7, various amendments to the UDO related to parking. Amanda Bunce is presenting. Ms. Bunce.
This should be fairly quick as well. There are 2 amendments that are proposed by staff tonight. The first is to the parking lot design standards section. Currently, we have a standard that requires parking for non-residential development to be located 50% to the side or rear of a building. And the proposal is to provide an exemption from that requirement for properties that are zoned light industrial or tech flex and that are not located on a limited or controlled access highway, thoroughfare, major collector, or minor collector street. So this would give them more flexibility as to where the parking can be placed. Happy to answer any questions you may have on that amendment.
What's the impetus for this? I mean, why did you bring it to us?
It was brought to our attention for a site that's currently under review, and it's located on a cul-de-sac in a tech flex zoned area, and it really has no view by the general public other than people that happen to be working along that cul-de-sac. So we felt that this was a good place where there could be an exemption from this requirement.
Makes sense. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bunce.
The next amendment is to the parking requirements for warehouses. And currently there's a tiered system for how much parking is required for 4 different types of uses: indoor storage, warehousing, vehicle service, and manufacturing area. And in looking at not only the parking requirements for surrounding jurisdictions, but also the ITE manual that gives us some information about parking requirements or parking demand, we have just proposed to separate indoor storage and warehousing from vehicle service and manufacturing area, leaving vehicle service and manufacturing area parking standards the same, and reducing the amount of parking for indoor storage and warehouse so that buildings that are 1 to 50,000 square feet would be required to provide 1 space for every 1,500 square feet, and then as keeping the standard for larger buildings of over 50,000 square feet the same at 1 space per 2,000 square feet. That's it. Any questions?
It's just is this just being brought like more current to current standards, or what initiated this?
It was brought to our attention by someone who was looking at a warehouse type development with a mix of uses, and as we began to look at it and look at what was being required in other areas, we just started looking at other areas and doing some research and realized that we were really over parking smaller warehouse users.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, that's the conclusion of the staff. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing, and, no one signed up, so we will move on, close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously. That concludes our public hearings for tonight. We have no old business, no unfinished business. At this time, we go to new business number 1. This is to approve the Point at Lake Castleberry Master Subdivision Plan on Wimberley Road. New business number 1 is being presented by Shelley Mayo, who's approaching the podium at this time. Ms. Mayo, I'll try to drag it out.
I appreciate that, thank you. The project before you is a master subdivision plan located on approximately 35 3/4 acres. The parcels, there are 2 parcels, one to the east of the American Tobacco Trail, and then one larger one which is split by Wimberley Road. The larger parcel takes up both the southeastern and southwestern corners of Wimberley Road and Green Level West Road. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on March 29th, 2017. The neighborhood meeting report is in your staff report. The project is zoned low-density conditional zoning for the larger parcel and rural residential for the smaller parcel. Currently, the 2 parcels are a single-family home with multiple outbuildings on the property. The property is partially wooded with ponds, wetlands, and a stream. It is the site of a former family-owned landscape nursery. The approved zoning conditions from when this property was rezoned are shown in your staff report, including a condition limiting the maximum density to 2 units per acre. The overall area of the project is 35 3/4 acres, roughly, and there are 47 lots on the property, so this comes out to about 1.3 units per acre, falling well below that 2 dwelling units per acre threshold. Because it falls underneath the 2 units per acre, technically the UDO does not require resource conservation area. No residential subdivision under 2 units an acre is required to provide that. However, the applicant was required to make up a small portion of buffer located right in here. There's a Duke Energy easement that runs practically along this entire section, and because we don't allow private utility easements to count towards buffers, they actually had to narrow a portion of the 30-foot buffer down to 15 feet. That is allowed by the UDO so long as they make up that area elsewhere in RCA. So in your staff report, you will see a section that says they were required to provide 2 acres or 0.7% of the overall parcel as RCA. This is why. That's why it's such an unusual number. The applicant is actually providing 12.7 acres, so over 35% of the overall property as RCA. That includes this entire smaller parcel to the east of the American Tobacco Trail, and then also this streambed area complete with some wetlands. That is a significant increase over what they were required to do. The buffers on this property along Wimberley Road typically requires a 30-foot type B buffer. Almost all of the buffer along Wimberley Road on both the eastern and the western side do meet that 30-foot type B. There is that one small section right about here that is the 15-foot type B that's allowed per the UDO. The Green Level West buffers are 30-foot type B, and all of those buffers do meet that. The American Tobacco Trail requires a 50-foot type A buffer, which is also provided. And then the property buffers to the south and west along the adjacent properties are a 10-foot type B buffer, which also meet that. The proposed subdivision was heard by the Parks and Rec Advisory Commission, and they recommended a fee in lieu. The total amount of the fee in lieu is in your staff report. The proposed master subdivision plan is consistent with the Apex Transportation Plan. As far as access and circulation, the eastern portion of Lake Castleberry Master Subdivision Plan will connect to Wimberley Road via a full movement access point here. The western side will actually connect through the existing Lake Castleberry subdivision via Dorset Grove Road, and it will come out somewhat to the south of this. The proposed master subdivision plan does meet the requirements of the UDO as currently shown. As such, planning staff recommends approval, and planning board heard this application on their September 11th meeting, and they also unanimously recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is here, so he can also answer any questions you have.
So, I do have a question.
Yeah,
if
go
that's
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
What is the development potential of the area east of the American Tobacco Trail?
Roughly just shy of approximately 10 acres, if I remember correctly. It's 9.9 something acres, and if you were to go with the maximum density, then that would be approximately 20 units based on, actually, let me rephrase that. That parcel was not a part of the rezoning. That was for the low density portion overall. So that one would have 1 unit per acre, so approximately 9 dwelling units is the potential under the current zoning.
What is the RCA on the area west of the American Tobacco Trail?
A little over 2 acres.
Okay, so that's the 0.7%.
Mm-hmm. So 0.7, and it includes this section here and then some of the buffers as well.
So they did their required on the left side of the ATT?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, it's actually, you can't really look at it quite that way since it's all being considered RCA.
Right, I follow you. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or a motion?
Make a motion we approve.
I'll second.
Discussion on the motion?
It's a good project.
It's like a good project. I just cautious about the future council and the piece on the right there as it gets developed, so. But I'm in favor of this.
All right.
Yeah. It's like we had discussion related to the angle, and the neighbors had a discussion about the angle there too, but.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That concludes new business. At this time, we have on our agenda a motion request to go into closed session for two purposes. One, to consult with the town attorney related to the handling of the matter of City of Fayetteville and the Public Works Commission of the City of Fayetteville versus North Carolina Environmental Management Commission, North Carolina Department of Environmental and Natural Resources in the town of Cary and the town of Apex. And number two, to discuss a personal matter. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of going into closed session, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, we are now going into closed session. The public is advised that there are no further items on our agenda tonight. You're welcome to wait around, but not much will happen after that. Thank you.